manager extraordinaire, J.J. Dillon, getting inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. And then Tully Blanchard to their right. And this is a real special treat. One of the, really the original foes of the Horsemen when they made their inception. Magnum TA, everybody. Magnum TA. So I guess to get started, because there's a lot of different origin stories. In your estimation, gentlemen, what is the impetus? What is the original origin of the Four Horsemen forming as a group, officially?
Who are you asking?
JJ, you can start. Yeah.
Well, a lot of things that are successful in wrestling that are some person's creative idea. Sees something special between a group and puts them together. And in the case of the Four Horsemen, it was the exact opposite. It was a very spontaneous thing. And we were doing TBS TV. We were working 7 days a week. Matinees on Sunday, and Saturday we would do TV out of the TBS studio in the morning, get on a plane and go somewhere and wrestle that night. And it was a deal where it was the show that came on at 6:05. They would start taping it, and the tape would just run. It wasn't like it was done in segments and edited, and so it was kind of wing it. And if things ran short or long, adjustments were made. And it seems to me that 1 week, for whatever the reason, towards the end, that there was time that they were short, and Ric Flair was the world heavyweight champion. Ole Anderson and Arn Anderson were world tag team champions, and Tully, you were either the national champion or the TV champion? TV champion. All right, he was TV champion, and I managed just Tully through some shenanigans. Somehow Baby Doll got aced out, and I don't remember the details of how I pulled that off, but anyway, I only managed Tully. So as it was, somebody said, oh, you guys got all of the championship belts, all the gold, so all of you go out there at the same time and give you a chance to tell the fans, you know, what towns you're going to be in.
There was an 8-man tag match coming up.
Oh, okay, there was an 8-man tag match coming up. I knew there was some reason why they all of us went out there, and I went out because I managed Tully. And the idea was to promote the 8-man tag match, as well as tell them where the towns we were going to be in the upcoming week. And Arn Anderson, in his own unique style, just on his own said, you people at home, take a look at your screen of all these guys that have all the bragging rights wearing all the gold. And he said, never have so few dominated everyone else. You'd have to go back in the history books to the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and he held up 4 fingers. Well, nobody thought anything of it, except immediately following that, anytime any one of us went out there, it became an interactive thing because the fans could get involved. And they started yelling, Four Horsemen. And then they started holding up the 4 fingers so that they were involved. And if I remember right, it was a couple of weeks that went by, and Jimmy Crockett finally said, what's this Four Horsemen thing I keep hearing? And I said, Jimmy, I think maybe you better pay attention, because it certainly wasn't our idea, but the fans heard it, liked it, picked up on it, and there's...
Well, very shortly, we were in Greensboro, and there was a whole, like the second row of ringside was a college fraternity, and they all came dressed in sport coats, ties, and sunglasses, and holding up a flashcard, Horsemen. It was pretty phenomenal.
And one of them's here from Greensboro, who works with, can't think of his name, drawing a blank, but he still follows on. He writes for the Torch, contributes to the Torch, and he was one of that group in the front row. Yeah.
Are you talking about Bruce Mitchell?
Bruce Mitchell,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. You saved me. And
You should
again,
stay out of cages.
I know. Thank you, Tom. But again, it was an impromptu thing, and many of the successful things are something that the fans got involved in. And what made it so unique was that the four guys that were the core of it were already established in the business. They were already stars in their own right. Certainly Flair is a world champion. Certainly Ole and Arn. By that time, Arn had rose quickly, and as an Anderson had proved his worth. And Tully was, he's here to honor his father. He's second generation. I first met Tully when he was a quarterback at West Texas State. I was wrestling in Amarillo, and just a great talent. So everybody was already established in the business. And what was unique about us is there were no egos. That a lot of times, especially when you have four, when
There were great egos,
Wow.
there just wasn't any jealousy.
Okay, yeah, that's better put. That a lot of times when there's interview time, and if there's 3 or 4 guys, and you go out there and they run short of time, and one guy doesn't get his time on the mic, and I've seen it time again, come back, head drop, face down because he didn't get to talk on TV, where that was not our mentality. It was like we would often go out there with no order of who was going to say what. It just was whatever the feel of the moment was. And there were weeks where one or several of us didn't talk because somebody got on a roll, and we just had a chemistry between the four of us. We traveled together. We were in the dressing room together. Thanks to Mr. Flair, whether we wanted to or not, we partied together, and we spent more time together than we did with our families. And I don't think I certainly never would have dreamed that it would last as long as it did and become as big as it did. But it was, it was a great experience.
Oh yeah, it was, but because of the origin is why people still remember to that level the Four Horsemen, because it wasn't a promoter's idea. It wasn't somebody sitting around going, how can I sell tickets? And, we're going to call these 4 guys the Four Horsemen. That was not the case. And, it was just phenomenal. And, the reality of me being part of the group, I don't remember, Terry, you might remember, as Flair was Gene and Ole's nephew.
Was
A
I'm not
cousin?
sure cousins. I think.
Yeah, they were in the Anderson family somehow to help Flair get over, and then Arn came in as a nephew. Maybe he was the nephew, and so it was an Anderson family deal. And then in that 8-man tag match, my only claim to fame was I was wrestling the Booker. So he was going to be in the 8-man, so I got to be in the 8-man, and they couldn't get rid of me. Or JJ. So
Yeah, I became the manager of the whole group, which was kind of sweet for me, and it just what was unique too. In the history of the business, I've been with a lot of people that were not fan favorites that I've managed, and they grow in intrigue and people get excited to see them. But then the first time they get beaten, they're never quite the same. They're never as hot as they were. And we had a certain amount of magic that we could go out week after week and leave the ring in our own blood, but somehow manage to bring the belts with us. And then as long as they give us the TV time the following week for us to create our own version of what took place the week before, the fans used to look at us and say, knew that we were bold-faced. In their opinion, we were bold-faced liars, and thought, well, they need to get them back in the ring and give them a worse beating than what they took last week.